Welcome to the Ladies Kickin Ass Podcast, where we help you ignite your inner badass and create the service business of your dreams. I'm your host, Tanya Wilson, and together we'll dive into inspiring stories and expert coaching to set your journey on fire. Hey ladies, welcome back to the podcast. Today we have an incredible guest with us. Naeemah is joining us. She's a powerhouse woman who has transformed her life experiences into a mission to help others break barriers and unlock their full potential. Naeemah has navigated a journey filled with challenges, resilience, and amazing achievements, and I'm so excited for this dynamic coach to be able to dig in with us today. And we're just going to kind of go there and talk a little bit about motherhood, starting a business, being a single mom, to, trying to figure out how to navigate all the things and not beat the shit out of yourself about how you're not showing up perfectly all of the time and, all of those things. It's a really good feel-good conversation to have two women that really have been at the depths of like, oh shit, to now being able to see like they've built two really awesome businesses. I think a lot more women need to be able to see women that have done this and talk about the struggles of how they got there. And this overnight success that was really 10 years of really, really hard work. So Naeemah, thank you for taking the time to be with us today. And why don't you give us a little bit about your background and what some of those little struggles were and what you enjoy doing for work today?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tanya. I'm excited to be here and to talk about kicking ass with you today. So I grew up in poverty on the south side of Chicago, and my parents are both entrepreneurs by spirit, but with no resources, right? So not having the ability to start a business, not having the ability to really sort of scale anything. They did little things. They made things and sold things. So I grew up in a space where entrepreneurship was valued. But I also grew up in poverty, as I said. And so the ability to get out of our circumstances really focused on education. So working really hard. And I learned young that I had to be perfect. Everything had to be perfect. I had to get everything right. I had to get straight A's. I had to show up. I had to do all of the right things. I had to present myself the right way. Everything had to be perfect. And I carried that with me well into my 30s. And it was really hard to always be perfect. It was really hard to always, I was so hard on myself, right? I was always hard on myself. So I got the straight A's. I did really well in high school. And then I went to Harvard. And so this was kind of a big deal, right? Like it wasn't common, obviously, from my town, from my school, for somebody to go someplace like Harvard. And I talk about thriving as an outsider in my business. Talk about being an outsider. I came from a space where I didn't always have food on the table. And now I'm in this bastion of wealth and privilege and success. And it was so strange for me. It was so odd. I didn't fit in. I didn't feel like it made sense, but I was still trying to be perfect. I was still trying to get everything right. And I realized really early on that I was not the smartest person in the world, that I was not the smartest person in the room. And then I had so much that I had to learn. And so I went through the Harvard experience, sort of resetting myself, readjusting to where I fit in the world and being a little fish in a big pond instead of being that big fish in the little pond that I was before. So after I finished college, I went off and was a professional actress for a few years and had an amazing experience doing that. I toured as a puppeteer for a year and a half, which was really fun. And then I decided I wanted to be a mom. And it was this moment. It's time. I'm ready to be a mother. And I wasn't ready to be a wife. I didn't understand what it meant to be a wife. I couldn't really get my head around what that was. I just wanted to be a mother. So got together with a childhood friend. We had a couple of kids. We were together for some years. And I was unhappy. I was very unhappy. And I lost my job. I had to file for bankruptcy. And so right after my third child was born, I found myself unemployed with terrible credit, 3 children, moving in with my in-laws, and going to food pantries to get food to feed my children. And so everything had just fallen apart. And I was at this point where I had to figure out how to restart my life. And so I ultimately, I connected with a recruiter friend of mine who found an opportunity for me to move back to Boston. And at 35, I was back in a new city, 3 kids, filing for divorce, restarting my career, not enough money to pay my rent, right? Like everything was just kind of starting from scratch. And I asked my mom, I was like, I need help. Can you come help me? Can you come help me, to figure this out? And she said, absolutely, but I won't be your husband. And I was like, well, what does that mean? And she's like, I've got too many girlfriends whose daughters moved back in with them, and their lives became being their daughter's partner, raising their daughter's children, and they never were able to move on with their lives. They were never able to sort of recontinue their life trajectory. They just sort of reset as the co-parent for their grandchild. And she said, I'm not going to do that. So you're going to build your career, you're going to date, and you're going to reset yourself. And then I'm going back on the road. I'm going to go back to traveling, hanging out, doing the things that I want to do. This isn't my stopping point. And I was like, okay, twist my arm. If I have to date, I guess I'll date. So I did restart my life, and I did get intentional about building my career. And so at this point I was working at State Street. And at State Street, my day job was doing process design, transformation work. But I found this passion around training and developing people. I took my theater background and I was training the introverts and the researchers to speak in front of audiences. I was coaching young professionals and helping them to navigate their careers and ask for what they wanted, and really kind of get outside of their comfort zone. And I did this coaching and training on the side for years and years and years. At some point, I was hired to actually build a program to help to move people around the company to do this mobilization work. So instead of laying people off, we can move them into new roles. And after years, after a decade of doing this coaching work, I realized that this is my life. Like, this is who I am. This is what I want to be, my purpose. And so in 23, I had the privilege of being laid off. I call it a privilege, right? I had the opportunity to leave the organization and to have some time to really kind of reset and rethink where I wanted to be. And I, talked and networked and connected with all these different folks. And then I accidentally found a client. And then I accidentally found another client. I said, oh, I think I started a business, and it just, it kind of happened. And so then I reached out to all of these people that I had trained over the years and said, hey, this is the work that I want to do. Is there an opportunity for me to come and play at your company? And those people that I had helped out of the goodness of my heart, and it wasn't my job, were excited about the fact that I'm now doing this as a service and are bringing me into their companies. And so now my focus and my work is around helping people to thrive in corporate spaces, helping people with communication and confidence. And then I want to just kind of double back on the parenting piece of it, because you talk about like the perfection, right? So
Yeah.
as a single mom with 3 kids, they were 2, 4, and 6 when I became a single mom. There's no perfection. There's no perfection when you have 2 parents all in trying to get it right. But I was like, there's no way I can do this on my own, right? But the help that I needed was from the kids, right? And helping them to understand from the very beginning, this isn't my house and you're living in it. This is our house and we are collectively responsible for it. So I got really intentional about teaching them independence, right? Like, I don't clean bathrooms. I hate cleaning bathrooms. And teaching kids how to clean bathrooms is really, really hard. But once you do it and you don't have to do it anymore, whew, life change, right?
Yeah.
And so helping the kids to learn the skills to have ownership, co-ownership of our household, and feeling the responsibility for all of us to be able to thrive in this house was hugely important to me. And so I started a YouTube channel last year. I had been toying with the idea of a book, and then I was working with a coach, and we pivoted to a YouTube channel. And I just sort of tell stories, and I'm sharing, like, you know, here's how I approached teaching the kids to cook. Here's how I approached teaching them to clean up after themselves, how to clean a bathroom, taking public transportation, right? Like those kinds of things that they have to learn, but as parents, it's really hard for us to let go. It's really hard for us to let them do it poorly, let them
Yeah.
fail and make mistakes and do it really poorly until they learn, because it's easier to just do it yourself.
Yes.
But I don't have the capacity or the emotional ability to do it myself. And then finally, I'll touch on, we'll say neurodivergence, right? So over the course of the years, we've discovered sort of various levels of neurodivergence in each one of my kids. And then as I'm connecting with them and understanding how they're approaching the world, I start to see similarities. And I'm like, oh, I should get tested too.
Yeah.
Because that is late, and so I have been, like growing up when we grew up, like none of that was a thing. Like you just figured it out, right? But what if I had the language for it? What if I had tools that said, this is how your brain works. And if you do this, it's actually going to make things easier for you. So I've been sort of navigating through undiagnosed neurodivergence and utilizing communication really to kind of help my kids to be successful despite my insufficiencies every step of the way. So that's my rambling story. It's a little bit all the pieces, but it's been joy.
It's so good. Oh my gosh, there was so much goodness in there. Just, I think for a lot of achievers, which is a vast majority of the people listening to this podcast, many of them are entrepreneurs in some aspect, is that need for perfection.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that that comes from many different places. For me, I'm horrible at this. I always want it. Like, let's be the most efficient. My thing is like, how
Yes.
efficient can we be at this? Like, how can we make
Yes.
this? How can we put it in a process? And I think that's just from years of running a business too.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we have to realize that we can't run our personal lives and our homes like we run our business, Like at work, we have employees and we pay them to do specific things that we ask them to do. At
Mm-hmm.
home, we cannot be that perfection monster or that SOP person that we are at work. How have you, with what you've been doing, have you found a hack, a tip, something where if you are this person, the boss, if you will, or the leader in a business, and then you come home, like you talked about having different kinds of forms of communication with your kids. That's very true. Even so with your husband, or your spouse, when you come home and you're like, you're still in like work mode and you have to come home and flip a switch and become mom mode and teach them and train them 50 times how to clean a bathroom. Like, where have you been able to kind of like put that perfection down and be able to really like utilize it great in work, but being able to really be loving and have those different kinds of communication forms with your kids?
So Tanya, I have to tell you, I'm still learning that, right? When my kids were younger, we had whiteboard lists in every room of every house, right? And so, like, here's your end of the day, get ready for bed list. Here's your after school list. Here's your how to make a meal list. Like, every room of the house had whiteboard stickers on the walls with to-do lists on them. And my kids communicate in different ways and they navigate the world in different ways. And so part of it for me was learning that I couldn't approach all of them the same way. Each one needed a different version of me to be able to achieve their own success. My middle child is profound with language. And so he gets really frustrated with me when I repeat myself. He's just like, I got it. You said it clearly the first time. You didn't need to say it a third time. And he gets frustrated when I'm not clear, right? And so learning how to just kind of pause and be intentional about like, what is the outcome that I want from the conversation? But also saying to him, you have license to challenge me. You have license to say to me, Mom, I want, what I need from you in this moment is X, right? So he said to me once, you always solve everybody's problems. Sometimes I just want to say what I want to say and I don't want you to solve my problems. And I was like, great. Okay. So when you come to me, I need you to say to me, I just want you to listen or I need your help. And if you say, I just want listening, Mom, then I'll be listening. Right.
Right.
And with my husband, so we have been together for 12 years, but we just got married this year. And so he didn't live in our house and he didn't have to deal with like full on Naeemah all the time.
Oh,
But with him moving into the house, I realized that like I do want everything to be just so. Like I'll come behind him and like
yeah.
reorganize the dishwasher.
Yes. Oh,
And
guilty.
right, and so my mom told me in my first marriage early on, she was just like, if you want him to do things, you have to stop correcting him. Because if he thinks that he can't do it right, he'll stop doing it altogether and you'll end up doing everything.
Yep.
Like, oh, that's
Now, if we could
really
just
important.
remember that.
Yes, because they come in wanting to add value and wanting to be helpful and prove themselves and all of that. But if you keep correcting, then they'll check out, right? And so I say to the kids, I'm like, my goal is not perfection. My goal is that you have these skills and you know how to do them. When you go out on your own, when you're living in your own house, you should know how to clean your bathroom. You should know how to wash your laundry. And so I'm checking in occasionally, but I have to like check myself, right? I have to stop myself and recognize they're not going to do things the way that I do them. And my perfectionism is a shortcoming, right?
Sure.
It's not healthy. And so I don't need to impose my dysfunction on them. If they've learned the skill and they show that they're able to display the skill, then I just need to stand down and let them do it in their way. But it's a constant process for me, reminding myself, you don't need to say anything else. You don't need to push any further. Like, let it be.
You're like, oh,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
I
Gritting the teeth.
can't. Oh, yes. How
Hmm.
do you think that need for perfection, like having things perfect, like the dishwasher, like
Hmm.
we can look at all these tangible things, but
Hmm.
how do you think mindset wise that need for perfection has affected you personally?
I know that I spend more time on things that don't matter than I should.
Mm. Mm.
And that takes away my ability to spend time on things that would bring me joy.
Uh,
Right. And it's that simple,
yeah.
right? So, my son said to me once, you don't always have to be doing something, mom. You should sit down. Right.
Yeah.
And so I know I want to spend time with my kids. I know I want to do things with them. And I'm intentional about let's go out of the house. Let's go do things in the world. One thing I started doing when they were smaller, when we had like no money, is that we couldn't afford a vacation, we would do a staycation. So I would like, book 2 nights at the Holiday Inn and, with a swimming pool. And it's, no travel required. We would just like go and we'd all like cram into one room with 2 beds and they could go swimming 3 or 4 times. There's no laundry to be done. There's no cooking. There's no cleaning. It's just us hanging out, playing games and swimming. And I know that I'm removing myself from the pressure and responsibility of my house, and I'm able to just sit and enjoy the space with my babies,
Yeah.
right? And so I know that like that's one of my like coping mechanisms, right? It's just like my strategies is if I remove myself from the work that needs to be done, then I know I can relax and I can spend that time doing the things that I enjoy. Yesterday I had like a meeting at a government agency. So like I gave myself the entire morning. I was like, it's open from 8:30 to noon. I'm just going to be there from 8:30 to noon. Well, I finished what I needed to do by noon. And instead of coming home and getting straight to work, I sat in a lobby and grabbed a cup of tea and read a book for 2 hours.
Yes.
Right? So removing myself from the space where the work is a way to kind of give myself that space to have joy and indulge in the thing that calms me and that gives me peace.
Yes. We thank you so much for being so vulnerable and talking about that because a lot of women just went, "Oh," when you were talking. Because I find myself, it's like you were talking about me when you're talking about that. So I know there's other people that feel this way. something I have started doing, which I never do because my calendar, I was always so proud that it's very color coded. And if it's
Yep.
purple, it's family. And if it's blue, then it's work. And if it's
Yes.
pink, then it's podcast and ladies kicking ass. And, it's orange if it's a sports color. Like it's so meticulously put
Same.
together.
Same.
And I just sat down this last couple of weeks and I had a small meltdown and I was like, I am so busy all the time. Like I don't follow up with my friends. I don't follow up with wonderful women I meet through this community. Like how can I be more present? And I'm like, how the hell could you be present when you're doing something all the time?
Mhm.
Like I literally would go from one meeting to the next one and I'm like, I'm gonna be late on the Zoom because I gotta run to the restroom and I haven't even scheduled enough time for myself to do that, let
Yeah.
alone eat lunch or take a
Yeah.
little walk or exercise or journal or do anything. It was like I would punish myself if I didn't wake up at 4:30 in the morning to have me time, which was on my schedule at
And
4:30
for the
in the
record,
morning.
4:30 in the morning is punishment.
Well, and I was like, and then if I couldn't wake up because I didn't go to bed till late because I was up doing crap, then I
Hmm.
would be like, oh, you're letting yourself down, you're doing all this stuff. I just had to get into this, like I cleared my entire week and I need to sit and focus because we say like we want to spend time with our children. Our families
Hmm.
are so important to us and we say this all the time. But what my kids were seeing was that work was more important, that this meeting with someone else was more important, that I had to hurry and eat dinner and clean up real fast so I could go sit down and work some more.
Yeah.
That's what they're saying is important. So we say that things are important, but they're not. So I would
Mhm.
super challenge people that if you find yourself identifying in what we're talking about here, look at your calendar. We've always been taught on a productivity phase, oh,
Yes.
make it all pretty and make sure you time block and you do all this. Where the hell is the time block for you, though? Like, I
Yes.
just started stopping at Starbucks. I get my favorite little drink. I sit at a
Hmm.
corner table and even if I am reading work emails or if I'm doing things that I feel like I never caught up on or looking at my kids' school and their grades and do they have like missing assignments, like all the things that we just don't make time for. But that's like my one little hour a day that I get to sit and work on whatever I want to. If it's work
Yeah.
catch up, if it's something else, but I'm not at home doing laundry, which never
Hmm.
ends with 5 children. I'm
Yes.
not cooking dinner. I'm not answering everyone's questions at work. I'm really taking time for myself. So even if that is work stuff, but you're doing what you want to do and you're not always on someone else's agenda. I think
I
that's
love that.
right for perfection too, because if you are a perfectionist, you are a people pleaser, which often
Yes.
means you end up putting yourself at the bottom of the list of
Hmm.
everything. And we just really, really cannot do that anymore. It
Yeah.
makes me crazy.
So Tanya, I'll tell you, like as you're talking through that, I'm absolutely triggered, right? When I was working in corporate, my last couple of roles, I had uh, stakeholders in Europe and I had stakeholders in Asia. So my calls started at 7:30 in the morning, and I would have calls at 9:30 and 10 o'clock at night,
Yeah.
most days of the week. And there were times when I was running a global team where I might have 3 meetings at the same time. And I had to figure out which one are we going to reschedule, which one I'm going to delegate, and which one am I going to. And I would go through my workday and I'd get to about 5:30, and there'd be a break. And that was a break for me to pause and think about what's everything that I told somebody I was going to do today. Am I shooting that to somebody else to do, or am I somehow going to figure out how to do it myself? But there was no time to do the actual work because I spent my entire life in overlapping meetings. And
Mhm.
so when I started my business, one of the first things that I did when I set up my Calendly for scheduling, every meeting has a required buffer of half hour above and half hour below.
Yeah.
And so I no longer have that, oh my goodness, I'm not going to be able to go to the bathroom. Oh my goodness, I haven't eaten today, right? There's going to be a half an hour in between every meeting for me to kind of reset. If I need to send a quick email out afterwards, with action items, whatever it is, that was a gift that I gave myself when I
Yep.
started my process because I knew that I needed to have space to breathe. I knew that if I went into creating my own world in the mirror image of the corporate world that I lived, that I would go back to being burnt out just like I was when I was working in corporate. So that half hour, it means that the meeting can run long by 10 minutes, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Right. And I still have time to go put a load in the wash, right? I still have time to pause and talk to my kid before they run out for their activities, and whatever it is that needs to be done. Um, and if anybody wants my attention in the house, 3 kids, husband, mom, if anybody needs my attention in the house, at most, I'll be available within an hour,
Yeah.
right? And actually have time to engage. But I have all the colors, and it's not family and work. It's like each kid has their own color, and I have my own color, and my husband has his own color. And there's a color for when I'm presenting, and there's a color for business development, and there's a color for coaching clients, and all of those things. So like I can look at it and I'm like, oh, I'm doing great. I'm really balancing and all of that. But there's also those spaces. And those spaces are incredible because I feel like, if I have a coaching session and someone is emotional and they're having a really tough time, I can't go directly from that into running a workshop for a corporation, right?
Right.
I have to have that space to reset myself, because, as much as a coach, it's not my problem, it's your problem, and I'm supposed to be helping you through it. I'm still absorbing the emotional qualities of this experience. I'm human, and
Sure.
and I need to be able to have my human reset. And sometimes that's just go in my room, close my door, put on a meditation sound, and just have something in the background to just kind of calm my mind and my brain waves before I
Yeah.
step into the next thing. So that the starting meditation about a year and a half ago was one of the most powerful things I could have done for myself. Um, and being intentional about creating space for myself to breathe, is huge, huge.
It's everything. It's
Yeah.
everything. And I think for women that are like, go, 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 go all the time, for me, I kept saying, I'm not a meditator. I don't do
Yes.
breath work stuff. That's
Yes.
not me. I don't go to
Yes.
yoga. I laugh when
Uh-huh.
I go to yoga. Like, if I'm going to go work out, I want to punch something, like
Yes.
I really had that mindset. And I was like, the more I would go to events or something and they do like a breathwork session or a meditation of something. And I remember doing a Tony Robbins program and Master Co was on there. And that it was something I had never felt before. Like
Mm,
just total, I don't know what it was with his voice, but I was just like totally calm. And
yeah.
it scared the shit out of me. Like,
Mm.
why does this feel weird to be calm?
Oh.
Because I spend so much in that, like, go stop. And when you grow up, kind of in, I got to show up so that somebody sees me, you're in that fight or flighty type of mentality all the time. To feel calm feels very weird,
Hmm.
but it is also something that has really helped me be able to get out of that
Yeah.
cycle
Yeah.
of going, 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 always have to be producing. If I'm not, don't have a color on my block today, then that means I'm lazy today. How has that kind of impacted you too in learning to slow down and not having that negative self-talk that shows up of like, if I'm not busy doing, then I'm lazy. Like when your kid says, mom, you could sit down. My kids say that to me all the time. My
Yeah.
husband really says that to me all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but when I sit down, I get that feeling of like, I'm not being productive. How have you
Uh-huh.
dealt with that, overcoming that perfectionism?
So I think, we start with the fact that I had complete burnout in corporate, right? I had a point where I was exhausted. I was giving my all. I was working 2 full-time jobs, right? I had the day job I was being paid for, and then I had the additional work that I was doing on the side, coaching and advising. I was dealing with leaders who were, I'll say, protectors of the status quo, and who weren't interested. Like they said that they were interested in the work and being intentional about creating space for people who don't have a seat at the table. But then when they got in the room with you, their focus really was figuring out all the different ways that they could shut you down. Um, And that was stressful for me because I was just like, well, no, like everybody said that this was important and this is work that they wanted to do. And I got to a point where, my husband, who was my fiance at the time, said to me, "You're angry all the time. You're
Yeah.
exploding rage all over the house and everywhere." And I had to go into therapy. And a year into my therapy process, my therapist said to me, she said, "I want us to take a moment to reflect." She said, "When you first came to me, you said, 'I'm so angry and I can't imagine ever not being angry again.'" I said, "Oh my God, I said that?"
Hmm.
And so I was angry, I was frustrated, I was overwhelmed, I was exhausted, I was completely burnt out, and I was just exploding like I couldn't contain or control my emotions.
Yeah.
So therapy, meditation, I went through a whole nutrition program, changed my relationship with food. I left my corporate job. I spent a summer traveling and communing with my children. I started my business. I lost 60 pounds. I had a year of transformation that was just completely off the charts. And now my prioritization of joy and giving myself space impacts how I interact in every circumstance, right? And so, yeah, like if I have a half hour break, I like literally just before we started, I went and sat down and watched half of an episode of American Horror Story, you know? And I was just like, I've got a few minutes. I'm gonna sit and just like entertain myself. Like I said yesterday, I took 2 hours and I read a book. Um, I know that I can go, 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 go. I know that because I did that my entire life, that I can go without sleeping. Like I used to joke, sleep is overrated.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I would get 4 to 5 hours of sleep 3 or 4 nights a week.
Hmm.
And so I was operating at a consistent level of sleep deprivation. Well, we know that sleep deprivation, like counters like levels of drunkenness, right? In terms of your ability to function in the world, right? So I was basically walking through the world drunk.
Hmm.
Right? And so going through this transformation journey in every way, right? In meditation, in food, in sleep, in all of those things, I never want to feel like that again,
Yeah.
right? I never want to go back to that space where I am not in control of my body, my emotions, myself, and I'm just exploding all over everyone. And it's not hard to stay out of it, right? Like once you find your calm, right? Like that moment of like, oh my goodness, this feels strange. I'm not doing anything, right? But once you like let yourself sit in that and maybe journal about your feelings and
Hmm.
then go read a book, right? And find ways to sort of sit in those moments and allow yourself to have those moments, each one can get a little bit longer, right? Like, when I started off meditating, I could do 4 minutes, 6 minutes, right? And now I can sit in calm for half an hour, right? I
Yeah.
couldn't have imagined that 2 years ago. And so
Right.
practicing calm, practicing patience with yourself, practicing moments of quiet helps you to kind of build up your tolerance for self care. And why do we have to have tolerance for self care, right? But you build that tolerance and you find that space. So
Hmm.
there's two things I want to toss out in terms of recommendations. So one is Vishen Lakhiani is the person who like transformed my mindset. He's got an app called Mind Valley, and it's a collection of all of these gurus, and you can find the path to meditation that makes sense for you because there's 50 different meditation leaders in that space. There's nutrition programs, there's programs, there's design your life programs, right? There's all of this stuff. So the Mind Valley app has been huge to me. And then
Hmm.
the book that I assign in my workshops and my trainings that I bring to my offsites and that I mention all of the time is The Big Leap by Gay
Yeah.
Hendricks.
Hendricks.
And this idea of being comfortable with your zone of incompetence, like the concept of the zone of incompetence helped me to understand my relationship with imposter syndrome. And that's not what it's meant to be, but it literally reset my brain around imposter syndrome and allowed me to step out of it and say, oh, that's not imposter syndrome. That's just shit I don't want to do, you know?
Yeah.
Right? And if I don't
No.
let anybody push me into that space, then I don't have to worry about whether I'm good at it or not. I don't want to do it. Right. So, like, allowing yourself to have a zone of incompetence and just being like, yeah, I'm cool with that. Um, he also has a mantra in there that I love, and a bunch of other things about this concept of your upper limit. And
Mhm.
so you grew up a perfectionist like me, and it's like we have all these things that we have to do right all of the time. And we also were taught a capacity for happiness and a capacity for joy. So as children of excellence, we were taught, don't make your brother uncomfortable. Don't show off. Don't bring too much attention to yourself. There's all these things, these don'ts around your excellence and your joy. And so been taught like to tamp it down, tamp it down, tamp it down. As an adult, when you start to reach that threshold of joy that you set for yourself as a 6-year-old, you start to sabotage yourself because you're not supposed to. You're not supposed to express that joy. You're not supposed to sit in it. And you can't sit in it for too long, and you can't expand it because you learned that you weren't supposed to. So the big leap was like really powerful for me in terms of being able to stop upper limiting and allow myself to really sort of lean into my joy and expand it continually.
Oh, that's so good. That book is incredible. And I
Mm.
think when you read that book, have you read it more than once?
Yes.
You get something out of it every
Yeah.
time. So if
Yes.
you have read The Big Leap before, I know we've talked about that on other podcasts that we've recorded too. It's a fan fave in this
Mm.
community.
Yeah.
Read it again if you haven't read it for a while because it is
Yeah.
amazing how it becomes applicable to those things that you're really working through at that moment.
Mhm.
It's one of those good ones that would be like it's not a it's a pretty quick read. So it's like one of
Yeah.
those you could definitely have on an annual cycle and you'd be like, oh my gosh.
100%.
What?
So I read it before I started my transformation. And then I read it
Oh,
again this year. And what spoke to me in that book when I was still in the midst of all of the things was completely different than what spoke to me after I had started my own business, right? It was a completely different book. And so,
yeah.
absolutely, you got to read it multiple times.
And as you start building your confidence and building your life, your upper limit changes.
Yes.
And many times you can be, start here and be up 5 rungs, and then
Right?
you reset yourself back down
Yeah.
here for some reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's happened to a lot of us. So it's like, oh shit, I don't belong up here. And then you end up falling back down. Or you kind of,
Yeah.
sometimes people refer to it as self sabotage, whatever you
Yeah.
want to call it. There's plenty of little like labels to go on it.
Mhm.
But really just continuing to know that that is there and it really is
Yeah.
a thing. And if you're continuously paying attention to it, you don't climb 5 and drop 3. You might drop
Yeah.
1 and then realize, what am I doing? And get
Yep.
back on that. So I think
Yep.
that's
And
awesome.
one thing that I'm in this moment, right? I'm having a moment. The way he talks about going through this journey with Kathleen, right? And I listened to the audiobook. I don't know if you've done that. You should absolutely do it that way one
Okay.
time too, right? But going through this journey with Kathleen and being able to support each other and recognize when the other is upper limiting. If you surround yourself with people who are not achieving and not achieving, right? But who are not trying to live their joy or who don't know how to live their joy. It's really easy to get pulled back down because you're not with other people who are trying to live in that space. So
Mhm.
recognizing how important it is to surround yourself with people who are trying to push their own upper limits and who are trying to push their capacity for joy because you're doing it as a community and they can catch you when you fall and you can catch them when they fall and you're all, elevating together.
Absolutely. That's the whole purpose of this community is that because many times we look around and we're like, where's my people? Like they
Yeah.
expect it to be your sister or your spouse or your
Mhm.
mom or your best friend. And
Yeah.
those It's always your people.
Yeah.
My closest circle of women friends that I have, very few of them live within 300 miles of me.
Hmm.
We do a lot of this. We do a lot of phone calls. We do a lot of texting each other, but we're
Yeah.
building similar kinds of businesses. There's, you know, you can find people, one, that you can help, two, that you can collaborate with, and three, that you can learn from. I loved at the
Yeah.
beginning of this, just a full circle, when you said, you realized that you weren't the smartest person in the room anymore.
Hmm.
That's when you know that you're on a trajectory of growth, when you know
Yes.
that. Because
Yeah.
if you feel like you're the friend that everybody comes to for help all the time, girl, you got to find another circle to be a part of. And not that you can't help them. Please help them, because we
Yes.
definitely need women to do that. But you need those people to help
That's
you as
right.
much as those people need you. So don't upper limit yourself on what
Hmm.
that community looks like, because it feels comfortable. Because it sucks going in a room being like, oh my God, like I know nothing in here. It's absolutely incredible. I'm actually working with a team right now. We're developing a franchise. And I sit in these meetings. We went through our FTD disclosure, which is like the big disclosure to sell the franchise yesterday. And I was like, I feel like I need an interpreter to sit in this meeting. I know my industry so well, and I know what a success this can be, will be. But just I get lost in all of the lawyer speak that is
Hmm.
in all of these documents that I'm like, I had to like take a few minutes afterwards and be like, this is a new level for you. I had to journal about this. This is a new level for me that I
Yeah.
haven't been in for a long time. I've been the boss, I've been the leader of this
Hmm.
business for years. And now I'm coming into something where I'm learning from people, and I'm not the one that people are going to. I'm the one asking the questions. And
Yeah.
what an opportunity for growth. It is so uncomfortable. But if you find yourself in a very comfy circle of people, you got to seek out those ones that you aspire to be, the people that
Hmm.
you're watching. Reach out to them. It's
Hmm.
amazing how many people I have reached out to, even just podcasts I listen to, and I'm like, that podcast was badass today, and this is why it helped me. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for talking about this. And it is amazing how many people that you think are completely untouchable respond to you and say,
Yes.
one, thank you so much, because they rarely get the validation that they're trying, they're not seeking them, but they rarely get like, oh, wow, we're actually making an impact and helping. Many times you're doing that very silently and nobody ever says anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of times people end up giving up because they feel like they're not making an impact. Meanwhile, there's 100 people over here like dying for a next episode to come out, or
Yeah.
dying for a new event to come out, or a new course, or something, a new book that you're writing. So it's just like reaching out and being able to say, hey, I'd love to learn from you. It's amazing how many people have done that. How have you done things like that in your life to improve your circle of influence around you?
So, like I said, when I was in corporate, I was being brought into rooms to coach and to teach and to train, especially young professionals who were sort of coming up. And so I got really used to being, that go-to person. But I'll tell you, corporate, it will humble you, right? And so I frequently in my day job found myself in rooms where I had no idea what I was doing. I'd have leaders say, hey, I'd love for you to come and join my team. And I'm like, well, I don't know anything about that. And they're like, we'll figure it out together. So each time I changed roles, which was maybe every 2 years, slightly yet less, every time I changed roles, I found myself in a room where I had no idea what I was doing. So I got comfortable with change and with learning spaces, really early. I also had just really incredible mentors who would tell me, you're getting this absolutely wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And how powerful that is, right? Naima, this is absolutely not what we need here, right? I'm like, okay, right? Help me understand, right? And so getting that kind of feedback, having people not just say, you're failing, but like, this isn't what we need, rethink it. This is the desired outcome. Help us get to that. And giving me a chance to try again, to iterate until we got to the space where we were designing what we really needed to design. Um,
Mm-hmm.
what I learned from those experiences was that I get so much from being in the room with people who have more experience than me and who know more than me. And in my corporate world, it was really easy to cultivate that. I had leaders that I respected. Every time I was looking for a transformation, a new opportunity, I would go on a roadshow of, meetings and teas and coffees with them so that I could ask for guidance. I could ask for their feedback. I could ask for introductions. And that was a powerful, tool for me to be able to kind of move through my corporate career. When I stepped out on my own, I very quickly realized that most of my conversations with my friends and my colleagues were about the struggles of working within the confines of a corporation. And while I could add value in those conversations, they no longer added value for me because I wasn't in that space anymore. So I have this amazing network where people have introduced me to other consultants. I have 3 or 4 consulting networks that I've joined that have monthly calls where we talk about our challenges, we share our experiences. And over the course of this last year and a half, I've built these different communities of folks or joined communities of folks who are on the same journey that I'm on, either new to starting a business or have been running their own business for a while and are sort of grappling with the challenges of being an entrepreneur, being a boss, those kinds of things. And so now, my community today is completely different than what it was 2 years ago, because these are folks who share the challenges that I'm experiencing, who are asking some of the same questions. And some folks have been entrepreneurs for 18 years and others have been entrepreneurs for 18 months. And sometimes I can offer insight, not a lot. Most of the time they're offering insight and I'm absorbing. But I told my son at one point, I'm like, I never again want to be the smartest person in the room.
Yep.
I'm really intentional about surrounding myself with people who inspire me and help me to grow to be the next best version of myself. And it's been really incredible because I see myself growing. I see myself changing, right? Like Tanya, 2 years ago, if you'd asked me if I was going to start a business, I would have unequivocally said, no, absolutely not. I have no interest in being a business owner. And, and now I'm thriving. I'm sitting in so much joy. And all of my work, all of my efforts are around helping people to elevate their lives. And I don't
Mhm.
have to do anything else, right? That's it. That's it.
Yeah. And I love that. That's it. You can do what you want, and that can be it. You don't always have to be doing it all. And
Yeah.
there will be great opportunities for people that continuously show up. The strength is being able to say no to the things that aren't going to bring you joy, that aren't going to elevate your life. Just
Hmm.
because you can doesn't mean you should, is one of my
Yes.
favorite things to say. Because many
Yes.
of us doers will say, but I could, and you'll figure out a way to rearrange your life so that you can try
Hmm.
to do something else because we think we got to
Hmm.
be constantly moving and going. I
Yeah.
love it so much.
Well, the no and the redirect is a really great way to give somebody else an opportunity, right? You ask me to do something and I absolutely like I met a woman yesterday and she's just like, I would love to partner with you and here's what I'm thinking about. And as she described her business model, I was just like, oh, I have a person who literally shares your vision and your purpose and who's building a nonprofit to do this work. You two should be partners for life. So I'm not going to take this on. I'm going to say no. And here's a person that you can build a relationship with and you can do these things together, right? So my no doesn't have to be a shutdown. It can be an opportunity creation for somebody in my world who would love that opportunity that I don't want to be part of, you
Oh, I
know?
love that. Oh, I
Mhm.
love that so much. What a great, great way of thinking of that. It's so great. I remember a story from Dean Graziosi, and he was talking about how his dad, the first time his dad came to like a big house that he had bought, like his first big home, and he had a landscaper there mowing the lawn. And his dad was very blue collar. They grew up very poor, was like, why would you pay another man to do what is your responsibility?
Mm.
And his big thing with that was, I'm giving this man the opportunity that I was given to be able to have this.
Mm-hmm.
And for a long time, I was like that too. I was like trying to run a business. I got 5 kids here. I got all this stuff. And I was like, I'm going to hire somebody had said to me, you need to hire a house cleaner to come to your house. At least then
Yeah.
you wouldn't have to do that. And I was like, that's
Yeah.
my
It's
responsibility.
my job.
It's my job.
It's how I define myself as a woman. Yes.
Oh my gosh. As we record this podcast, I'm like, can somebody hear the vacuum out here? Because when I leave this podcast studio, my house is going to be gorgeous this morning. And I always have them come on Fridays because then I don't spend the entire weekend I could be spending with my family cleaning my house. And you know
Yeah.
what? It's a small operation. I know the person that owns this company. It is
Yes.
helping her build her dream while I'm
Yes.
in here building mine. And if we have more of that mentality instead of thinking, oh, we have to do this, we got to do this, we got to do everything, like how much more opportunity are we creating for people out there to live their dreams? We hold too
Yeah.
tightly to things. It's the old sand adage, everything just slips away. But if you
That's
can,
right.
invite people to the table and you can delegate some responsibility and employ people to be able to help you to keep your own mind and sanity. It can be a very beautiful life being an entrepreneur.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So good. Well, Naeemah, if someone wants to reach out to you and connect with you, they want to learn more about you, what you do with your coaching programs, where's the best place for them to find and support you?
Absolutely. Thank you. The best place to find me is on LinkedIn. So you can find me folks I'm looking for, if you are working in a corporate space and you feel like there's value in bringing someone in to do some public speaking coaching or some manager coaching, I can play there. If you are interested in life coaching, career coaching, those kinds of things, that's another space that I play. You can find me on LinkedIn, Naeemah Elias. And so come follow me, sign up for a free consultation. I'm happy to talk with you for 20 minutes and just kind of help think about, like, what do you need? Like, what helps you to elevate and step into that next step? And I would love to play. So reach out and let's connect and continue to build this amazing community.
Awesome. And I will definitely link everything that you just talked about in the show notes too. Definitely connect with Naeemah. This has been such an incredible conversation. You are like just the complete definition and epitome of what a lady kicking ass is to me. And it's
Thank
really
you.
observation of things. It really is, going out and taking a risk and building a business and doing really
Yeah.
cool things. But I always love to hear from everyone that is a guest on the podcast how they relate to that phrase. So when you hear the phrase ladies kicking ass, Naeemah, what does that mean to you in your life?
So I think it's a couple of things. One, showing up at your best, but then two, recognizing that your best doesn't require perfection, right? So being the best you that you can be and activating your community, asking for help and giving help so that you are radiating your best self into the community around you.
So good. Oh my gosh, so good. This was such an incredible conversation. I feel like I met my twin today in spirit and the way that we handle our lives. So thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. And I look forward to continuing to connect with you.
Absolutely, Tanya. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for being part of the Ladies Kickin Ass community. Cheers to all you badass women out there. Keep rocking your power, igniting your fire, and making waves in the service industry. If you loved today's episode, please do me a quick favor. Take a screenshot, post it, and tag us at Ladies Kickin Ass. Be sure to include the link to your favorite episode. Your support in spreading the word means the world to us as we aim to empower even more women. Hit that subscribe button to stay tuned for more kick-ass episodes. And don't forget, a 5-star review is the ultimate high five. Connect with us on social media. All the links are in the show notes. Thank you for being part of our tribe. Now go kick some serious ass, lady.